thinking back, it really makes me laugh. It seems like a few years ago, you had a bad impression of her, and now your hunch is confirmed, right? Father told me that stepmother Judy has been acting strangely recently. My father always feels strange about everyday things, and sometimes looks up at the attic and becomes absent-minded. During the thunderstorm the other day, she even suddenly became afraid of thunder, but my father swore that Judy had never had this habit before. Father said he looked up at the attic several times but didn't find anything there. I knew something must have happened to her, so I was going to quietly go home and take a look. But now it seems unnecessary, thank you, Siddle. My father has never done anything unusual. He is a steadfast and honest man, I can guarantee that. I don't think I will ever forgive her. A white hand gently pressed the switch. Click. The dark bathroom was lit by incandescent light, illuminating a tall and thin figure. She reached out to tuck her soft hair behind her ear. The shiny mirror reflected a beautiful and eye-catching face, thin lips with slightly raised eyes, deep blue pupils as calm as a lake. Her expression was calm, her right shoulder was holding the phone, listening to the angry complaints from the person on the other end, turning on the faucet, her eyes looking down when she heard Christie's complaints, her pale lips suddenly moving. So you're at your father's house now? Yes, the girl's angry voice came from the phone, I'm almost home, I think my father has the right to know everything, I want to expose that woman's disgusting hypocrisy. I suggest you don't go back. The bathroom was filled with hot and humid air, the steam blurred the shiny mirror, the blonde girl's expression was calm, but the words that came out made the listener terrified, maybe your stepmother didn't just have an affair. On the positive side, maybe she just experimented on those men and then sold their organs. Maybe she joined some big cult and just used those men to complete the cult's mission. Maybe she performed some kind of sacrificial ritual to summon something dark, and she had to use fresh blood as a sacrifice. Or maybe she was possessed by a demon and started to eat humans. And also... Oh my God, Christie interrupted her, surprised, I don't understand why you have such strange and evil thoughts. Even on the positive side, how could things be so bloody and sensational? I'm already at the door, said Christie. She said, it's daytime now, even though your father isn't home, nothing will happen to you. Whatever, the blonde girl calmly turned off the faucet and dried her hands. But I've already called the police on your behalf. She thought for a few seconds and then calmly added. Standing in front of her house, holding the phone, Christie was startled when she suddenly heard a loud noise coming from the attic on the second floor. A man shouted in a deep voice, "Catch him, don't let him escape." Several gunshots rang out, followed by a bloody monster falling from the broken window on the second floor, and a bloody Rubik's Cube rolling towards Christie's feet. She was stunned for a few seconds and then backed away with a pale face. The woman's cries upstairs seemed very far away, from the cell phone came the calm voice of a little girl, "What did you see?" The uniformed police rushed out of the door and suppressed the monster. Fresh blood had dyed the grass red. Christie stared blankly at the scene before her, her lips trembling. I saw a person without a skin. The policeman groaned in a low voice, "Oh my God, how did he survive?" Stepmother Judy ran down from the attic, her face pale, she covered her mouth in panic, tears streaming down. But Christie was in no mood to pay attention to her now. She stared blankly at the skinless person, suddenly feeling that the gaze staring at her was a bit familiar. It seemed to be a man. The skinless monster struggled and stretched out its arms towards Christie, its completely exposed teeth moving up and down, making a terrifying sound. Christie couldn't help but take 2 steps back, suddenly realizing that the monster's gaze was filled with longing, but he wasn't looking at her, but at her feet. Christie heard him struggling to make a sound from his throat. He was saying, "Rubik's Cube. There's still one more Rubik's Cube." Christie muttered unconsciously, looking down at her feet, but suddenly froze. The Rubik's Cube that had just rolled to her side had disappeared. Beep beep beep, the sound of the phone hanging up rang out. Christie lowered her hand in shock, seeing the bloody monster being pushed into the police car, and Judy being asked to follow at the same time. "Hello, ma'am, we've received a report accusing you of illegally killing multiple people." They were escorted into the police car. A female police officer came over to comfort Christy. The two police officers beside her seemed to be discussing something. "Should we take that man to the hospital first? Will he survive until he gets to the police station?" Siddle hung up the phone, looking into the foggy mirror with a calm expression. She stretched out her slender, fair fingers, gently gliding them across the mirror, drawing a few random curves to reveal a smooth, transparent mirror surface, the curves reflecting her calm, cold eyes. She stood silently in front of the mirror, reaching out to stroke the hair on both sides of her face. A few strands of bangs of different lengths hung down in front of her forehead, her blonde hair covered one eye. She looked down and then looked up with cold eyes, her whole body suddenly revealing a gloomy look. Siddle walked out of the bathroom, went into the bedroom, took out a thick notebook and stuffed it into her suitcase. After hesitating for a moment, she took out a Bluetooth headset and put it in her ears. When Siddle dragged the suitcase out of the house, she received many surprised looks from everyone. She stopped, reached out and pulled the hood over her head, covering her long blonde hair and eye-catching facial features. It had been a long time since Siddle had stepped out of the house. The exposed skin was as white as ice and snow. This time, if it weren't for her aunt, Siddle would have stayed at home for 3 months after graduating from high school. When she arrived at the security check, the airport staff was holding a scanner. Siddle put her backpack on the table and listened to the weather forecast through her headphones. Today's local weather forecast in Derry Town: temperature, 19°C, humidity, 55%, cloudy, light wind. Hey, wait. After the check, when Siddle was holding her luggage and preparing to leave, a security staff suddenly grabbed her. He pointed at a square on the screen. "What is this?" Among the pile of scattered items, this square object suddenly appeared in the middle of the screen. Siddle. She stared at the square silently, starting to think. "That's right, what is this?" She glanced at the security staff, was silent for a moment, and then slowly replied, "You can open your bag." 2 female security staff came forward and held Siddle's shoulders tightly. The person in charge of screening opened the bag in front of everyone. Siddle saw that it was a Rubik's Cube. She calmly nodded to the security guard who looked nervous. "Look, this is just a Rubik's Cube." "Oh, why didn't you say so earlier?" The security guard was a little unhappy about wasting so much time, but he glanced at the blonde girl's beautiful face and finally swallowed his criticism. He took out the Rubik's Cube and scanned it a few more times before throwing it back into his backpack. Siddle boarded the plane with her backpack and suitcase. After sitting down, she opened her backpack, stared at the Rubik's Cube of unknown origin and material, and sighed silently in her heart. Forget it, she had gotten used to it over the years. It was too common for strange objects to suddenly appear beside her. Remembering what Christy had said before hanging up the phone, Siddle pursed her lips and put on her blindfold. After getting off the plane, she would call her back to ask what had happened to her stepmother. 6 years ago, Siddle met volunteer Christy at the orphanage, and the two had kept in touch since then. Not long ago, Christy's stepmother Judy, whom Christy had always disliked, seemed to be getting more and more strange, and she considered it a very troublesome matter and confided in Siddle. Then she received a series of photos from Siddle the next day. The resolution was not high, but the woman's face could be clearly identified. They were photos of Judy flirting with men in various bars. Facing Christy's horror, Siddle calmly explained. It was said that Judy only liked to drink and dance and did not work, and that she had been smelling of alcohol recently. She conveniently investigated the bars and alleys near Christy's father's house. For a little money, Judy could be found in surveillance footage from dark, secluded corners. But she had only seen her once, in a photo, 6 years ago. To confirm, Siddle had deliberately sent the photo to Christy, and she had angrily confirmed that it was indeed her. It seemed that Judy was hunting men, dressing up and bringing different men home from the dark alleys of small bars. The difference was that Christy thought Judy was just having an affair. Siddle thought Judy was hiding something in the house. Something that needed fresh flesh and blood to nourish. She remembered what Christy had said on the phone. A person without skin. What would that look like? The most important thing was what role this Rubik's Cube played in it. Siddle's eyelashes were pressed against the black eye mask. She disconnected the Bluetooth headset, preparing to get some sleep first. She could wait until she got off the plane to figure things out. The call from Siddle's aunt came unexpectedly, making her finish her homework a bit late last night. Today's weather forecast in Derry Town, temperature, 19°C, the loudspeaker on the white electric pole was loudly broadcasting the weather forecast. Clouds were gathering in the sky, several boys gathered near the loudspeaker pole. A boy with short platinum hair whispered, "In short, we can't let her stay here, what are you afraid of?" Someone pushed him. The boy who pushed seemed to be the leader of this group. He sneered disdainfully, "We can't touch her, but I've already handed her over to Julie and the others. I guarantee she won't be able to stay for more than a few days." He raised his eyebrows and laughed, "Guess she doesn't know her own limits. On what day will it run out of here crying and return to its mother's arms?" A fat guy excitedly shouted, "I bet it's 3 days. You're so bad, I bet it's 2 days, no, just half a day." "What's the bet?" "Whoever wins will get a pistol from your father." "Wait a minute," the silver-haired boy said with a gloomy look in his eyes, "don't go too far." He gritted his teeth and said, "She's my older sister after all, and my mother asked her to watch over me, don't make her crippled." "Don't worry," the eldest patted the boy's shoulder, "just chase her away and you can continue playing around, I promise it won't take long." The silver-haired boy didn't say anything more. He dejectedly turned his head away. A light breeze blew by, revealing a corner of the missing person notice stuck on a lamppost by the side of the